Hi guys, my name is Rishabh. Welcome to the channel. Today we'll start with the topic of force of interest. It is the last topic in this chapter 5. So we hope to we hope to cover this chapter completely in this video. So first of all, we'll discuss what is force of interest. Up until now, we have discussed about interest, effective interest rate, nominal interest rate. So force of interest is also a nominal interest rate, but a little bit different. We have seen that if interest rate is I per annum effective, then we can calculate equivalent nominal rate from this I as follows. We can calculate I2, which will be my nominal interest rate compounded half yearly. So this rate will be something like 9.761%. So similarly, I can calculate I4. I4 means nominal annualized rate when payments are made 4 times in a year. Similarly, I6 means nominal interest rate when payments are made 6 times in a year, that is in every 2 months. And similarly, I can calculate I12, which is just compounding every month. In this similar way, if suppose I tell you about a notation I infinity, what can you infer from this notation in a definition, in a similar sense of these notation? So I infinity means a nominal rate annualized nominal rate of interest compounded continuously. So what does this mean? Suppose I invest some amount here at time 0 for 1 year. So in normal setting, when p equal to 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, whatever, in those cases I break this 1 year time into equal sub intervals according to the p given. So if p equals to 4, I break this time into 4 parts and I get interest, equal amount of interest at the end of every quarter. And if I equals to 12, I get that payment at the end of every month. So when p equals to infinity, this means that compounding is done starting from here till the end. The compounding that is being done is regular, continuous, every second, every moment. So I'm calculating and paying interest regularly and continuously at every moment. These types of interest are more theoretical and are not generally used in the real world scenarios often, but these rate can be a good approximation when the time that has been given to us for calculation is suppose very short. So if suppose you want to calculate this rate I365, in this type of setting we are calculating a nominal rate that has been compounded daily. So instead of calculating and working on this I365, which can be very cumbersome when the calculation then years are tough, years are more. So instead of that, you can approximate this rate by this rate, which is I infinity. I infinity, as I said earlier, is just a nominal annualized rate of earning, in which compounding is done continuously every moment. So let me show you this by the help of a graph. So if suppose I have I equals to 10% or 0.1, I can calculate the equivalent nominal rate for different time periods or different p's. So I can calculate from here I2, which will be 9.761%. I can calculate I4, which will be 9.645%. 9.645%. percent. I can calculate from here I6, which will be 9.607%. I can calculate I12, which will be 9.5689. I can calculate I24, which is a nominal interest rate per annum compounded in every 15 days. This rate will be equal to 9.4599. Sorry, it is 5499 actually. 9.5499 percentage. And similarly, I can compound every week and my rate will be 9.5397. Now these all the rates are equivalent rates. So by the end of the year, the amount of interest that I am earning on this investment is similar whether I used I2, I6, I24 or any of these rates. So since you are getting the same amount of money or same amount of interest by the end of the year, so the more you are dividing the period or the more you are using the higher the value of the p you are using, the lesser the interest rate is, the lesser is the interest rate. So we started with I equal to 1 with period 1, that is our initial effective interest rate per annum, which is 10%. When we calculated and break the period in two parts, we got 9.761, that is a drastic change from 10%. Since then when we calculate I4, it is 9.645%, which is just less than I2 but not that much less. And then the I6 is also less, but the rate of decrement is also slowing down. But every interest rate that you calculate for a period P will be smaller than the previous one. So I52 will be less than I24 and so on. If I make a graph of this scenario, it will look like this. Suppose this is my graph. On the x-axis, I have P, that is my number of payments in a unit time, and on the y-axis I have the interest rate IP. So the graph of this situation will look like this. And our amount, suppose these are the time periods, suppose I is here, I2 something will be here approx, I4 will be approx here, I6, I12, I24 and so on, I54. So we see that in the starting initial era, from I where the period is 1 to something about 4 to 5, there is a drastic change, then the rate IP is decreasing but decreasing at a slower rate, and this IP is converging to this red line. I will tell you what this red line is. So we see suppose the interest rate here at the red line is, suppose it is this delta. Suppose the interest rate here at this is delta and delta has some value on number line. So we see this graph, this blue line is the graph of our IP. It is converging on this red line. The more and more we increase the value of P, this blue line will come more and more closer to the red line. So we can say so from this graph we see one thing, that no matter how larger we take p, this blue line will never cross the red line, or we can say this blue line will never fall below the red line or delta. So our IP, our interest rate P, IP, nominal interest rate, will never be less than delta. This delta is called a force of interest. The limit of IP is our force of interest delta. So when we can say it like this, when P is tending towards infinity, our IP is tending towards the rate. When P is tending towards infinity, our rate IP is tending towards delta. This delta can also be written as I infinity. To write this expression more formally and mathematically, we can write it as follows. So we can write it as limit P tends to infinity, IP equals to delta. So what this is telling us, this is telling us that when we take P to the infinity, this expression here IP will, the limit of this expression will be equal to delta. Limit is just telling us that when we are taking P to the infinity, this blue line is converging on the red line. The formal or the original mathematical definition of convergence is a little bit out of the syllabus, you can say. So we will not focus on that. We just get the idea of what is going on here with this rate. So when P is moving towards infinity, this IP is moving and converging on delta. Now we see how to calculate delta. You must have seen this result, the following result, which is called the Euler's rule in your 12th class calculus. So the Euler's rule says Euler rules says that limit n tends to infinity of this function 1 upon x plus n to the power n is equals to e to the power x. It means that for a given function fn, suppose this is our function 1 plus x upon n to the power n. Suppose this is a function fn, and for a given value of x, this function is approximately equal to e to the power x for large values of n. Or you can say, as n is moving towards infinity, this function is converging on e to the power x. Now see the result. See this result that we saw earlier in chapter 4, I think, or in chapter 5. In chapter 5, we saw this result in earlier videos. 1 plus I is equals to 1 plus I to the power p I to the power p upon p to the whole power p. We saw this result to switching between effective and nominal interest rate. Now I am taking the limit both sides and letting p tends to infinity. And we just saw earlier from the Euler's rule, we can, since LHS there is no p term in this 1 plus I, so there will be no effect of p tends to infinity of 1 plus I, so LHS will remain same. 1 plus I is equals to this function here. From Euler's rule we can write it as e to the power, this function IP is my x. If I compare this term this term on the RHS. So I can see this IP term. This IP term is my x. So I can write this e to the power, and since p is tending towards infinity, I can write it as e I infinity. And we know that I infinity is nothing but delta. So we get this result. We get 1 plus I equals to e to the power delta. This interest rate I infinity is nothing but delta. So from here we can get the value of delta as delta equals to log of 1 plus I, and if I is equals to 10%, then we get delta equal to 9.531 percentage. So in our earlier example where we calculated different nominal rate for different p's, you see we get delta equal to 9.531 percentage. So no interest rate is below this 9.531 percentage. So whether we take p equal to 52, 520 or 52,000, this rate will never be below the rate of delta. This rate will never be less than delta. So no matter how fast you are compounding or how many payments you make in a year, delta will be your continuous compounding rate. One thing to note is that when we put something in the power of e, this value will always be greater than 1 if our x is positive, and this value will be less than 1 if x is negative. You can also observe this from the graph of Ex, which look like this. Suppose this is 1. So the graph of Ex looks something like this. So we see Ex is positive for Ex is greater than 1 for positive values and less than 1 for negative values. So let me just tell you why I did tell you about this. Now we'll calculate the accumulation factor like we did in earlier videos. To calculate the accumulation factor from time 0 to n, where n is in years, and I am given the effective interest rate I per annum, I can calculate it as follows, like this: 1 plus I to the power n. Now we know that 1 plus I is nothing but equal to e to the power delta. So I'll replace e to the power delta with I, 1 plus I, and I'll get this, which is nothing but e to the power delta n. So we get a new accumulation factor when we are given the rate delta, which is nothing but a0 to n, that is the accumulation factor when we are given delta is nothing but e to the power delta n. And similarly we can calculate the discounting factor for this term, which is nothing but 1 upon the accumulation factor, so e to the power minus delta n. So we get a new result for calculating accumulation and discounting factors when we are given delta. Now let's calculate this continuously compounded rate for discount rate. Up until now we have discussed about interest rate and how to calculate this rate I infinity. Now let's talk a little bit about d infinity. That is nothing but when the interest rate is paid continuously at the starting of the period. So you might find it quite surprising, but in actual terms this is nothing but delta. So when you are compounding continuously I infinity or d infinity, is just equal to delta, and we can see why. So look this problem intuitively and you know why they are same. Suppose this is my initial time period I infinity. Before talking about I infinity, let's just say what is I4. When I talk about I4, I divide my timeline into 4 periods, and this is my 1 period. I4 means I will get my interest at the end of each quarter. So I get my interest here, 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 and here. And when I talk about D4, suppose this is my term D4. D4 means I'm using the discount rate, nominal discount rate. So in discount rate, we get the interest at the start of the each term. So D4 means I will get my interest at the start of each quarter. So at the beginning of first quarter, I will get my interest here. For the second quarter, this is my second quarter, I will get at the start of my second quarter, then at the start of third quarter, and then at the start of the fourth quarter. In both the cases, the total number of payment is 4, but timing is different. When we extend this idea to the infinite payments, we see a problem. And the problem is that now we have to divide this timeline into infinite intervals. Because we are paying continuously every moment, every second, I have to divide this timeline into many sub intervals. And when I divide this this 0 to 1 time period into so many intervals, there is no starting point and ending point. You see, I have divided in so many small intervals that they will not actually overlap, but the time period is so small that there is no difference between ending and starting. So the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. So that's why there is no difference between I infinity and D infinity, because since interest is being paid every moment, if you are paying suppose interest at every second, every millisecond, every nanosecond, then there is no difference between starting of the period and ending of the period, because there is no actually a single time period when we are continuously paying that payment. So that was intuitive example of how I infinity is equals to D infinity, and they are both just equal to delta. Now we will see one more graph, and I need a bigger space for that. So I calculated, suppose we are given interest rate of I equals to 10%. I equal to 10%. From this we know one thing, that my D will be less than 10%. And my D will be, I can calculate D as I upon 1 plus I. So if I equal to 0.1, then I will get, I'm directly writing the value of D, which will be, so my D will be 9.09%, because I am earning my interest 1 year early. And we know one thing, that I2 will be less than I, so it will come around here. I2 will be 9.76%. Similarly, we will get I4, which will be something less than 9.76. It would be around 9.645. Then I12, and then we'll get around this line. This line will be delta. One thing that you might know from the earlier videos, that effective interest rate I is always bigger than the nominal interest rate, because I covers the effect of compounding, and similarly D is always less than any nominal rate. So effective interest rate is always bigger than effective nominal rate, and effective interest rate D is always less than nominal discount rate. Sorry, effective discount rate is always less than nominal discount rate. So when I calculate D2 from this, let's change the color for these. D equal to 9.09, D2 will be equals to 9.30. D6 will be around something 9.45, then D12 will be around something 9.493. So this D will also converge on delta. So the graph of D will look something like this. And the graph of I will look something like this. This is an approximate graph that I have drawn. So we see that both IP and DP are actually same, and as P tends to infinity, our delta is the I infinity or D infinity rate. We can also see this from the graph. Then as P is tending towards infinity, both I and D are tending and converging towards delta. The difference is that I is converging to delta from above and D is converging to delta from below. And here the formal proof of why D infinity is equals to delta. To start, we first know that 1 minus D is equals to 1 minus dp upon p to the power p. This is the result that we have earlier read. Now taking limit both sides, limit p tends to infinity, 1 minus d is equals to limit p tends to infinity, 1 minus dp upon p to the power p. Since there is no term on LHS of p, so this will equal to be 1 minus d directly. And from the Euler's rule we see here we can take x is equal to minus dp. So we can think of it as, from Euler's rule says that the function needs to be in this form. So if we take x equals to minus of d to the power p, then this makes sense. So this will converge to e to the power, and since our x is minus, d to the power infinity, because we are tending p towards infinity. So we get this result. Now I am changing the sides, so I can directly get e to the power d infinity equals to 1 minus d to the power minus 1. I took 1 minus d below this side and e to the power minus d to the below of this side. In earlier videos, we saw that 1 minus d is the 1-year discounting factor. V is equals to 1 minus d. Okay. And when effective discount it is given, so 1 upon V will be the accumulation factor of 1 year. So if I have been given, so V is my discounting factor of 1 year, so 1 upon V equals to 1 minus d to the power minus 1 is actually my accumulation factor of 1 year. So I can also write it as 1 plus I equals to 1 minus d to the power minus 1, since they both are the accumulation factor of 1 year. So from here I can write e to the power d infinity equal to 1 plus I. Now we get d infinity is equals to log of 1 plus I, but log of 1 plus I was our delta, so we see both of the terms are actually equal. And the difference we saw is that interest rate was approaching delta from above and discount rate d was approaching delta from below, and we can also write it as d is less than d2 is less than d3 is less than delta is less than I3 is less than I2 which is less than I. Because I is received at the end of the year, so we need more, and since D is received early, so we can take less of D. Now see how we calculate accumulation and discounting factor. So it will be same as an interest rate because the delta is same. So our accumulation factor AN can be written as e to the power delta n, and our discounting factor Vn can be written as e to the power minus delta n. Now to summarize all the results we have learned so far, we will form this table. I will suggest you that you keep the below formulas on your tips while doing calculations. This helps a lot in transforming rates into whatever we like. So these are the values that we'll get values of. We will get value of delta I, V and D in terms of delta I, V and D. So the value of I in terms of delta is I equals to e to the power delta minus 1. The value of V in terms of delta is V equal to e to the power minus delta. The value of D in terms of delta is 1 minus e to the power minus delta. The value of delta in terms of I, delta equals to log of 1 plus I. Similarly, value of v in terms of I, we have learned this so many times, 1 plus I to the power minus 1, and the value of d in terms of I is I upon 1 plus I. Now we calculate the value in terms of v. In terms of v, delta equal to minus log of v. I is equals to 1 upon v minus 1, and d equal to 1 minus v. Similarly, delta in terms of d is minus log of 1 minus d. I in terms of d is 1 upon 1 minus d minus 1. V is equals to 1 minus d, and d is nothing but d. Now we'll do some questions to practice the concept that we have learned, and we'll use this formula extensively. So in the first question, I am given a amount of 500 that is being invested at time 0 and at the rate of 8% per annum force of interest. So delta is equals to 0.08 per annum, and I want to calculate the cumulative value after 3 years. So my accumulation factor will be 0 to 3 equal to e to the power delta into number of time period, that is 3, and to calculate directly the accumulation amount, 500 into a 0,3, I will get 500 into e to the power 0.24, which is 635. In the second question, in this first question, you can also first calculate the effective rate I and then use A03. But why to waste time in exam? Always try to solve the problem with the shortest way possible. In second question, we are given 800 at time 5, and we have to find the present value at the rate of 9% per annum continuously compounding rate. So our delta is 9%, and the amount is given at time 5, which is 800. So the present value of this 800 will be 800 into discounting factor of 5 years, which is nothing but 1 upon accumulation factor of 5 years, that is 800 into e to the power minus 0.09 into 5. This minus sign denotes that we are calculating discounting, we are discounting this value back in time. This will be 510.1. In next question, we are given delta is 8%, and we have to find I4 and D12. So for that, we need to first calculate the effective interest rate I. We know that 1 plus I is e to the power delta. So 1 plus I is e to the power delta. So we get 1 plus I equals to e to the power 0.08, and from here we get I equals to 8.33%, and we can calculate I4 from I directly using the formula. Similarly, to calculate D12, you can calculate D from this I and then use the formula to convert effective discount rate into nominal discount rate. Or you can use any formula from the table we just draw. So the topic I am going to tell you right now is very unlikely to be tested in the examination, but for the sake of understanding the concept well, we will discuss this topic. In this topic, we will see a different way or a different approach to consider interest rate, nominal interest rates. Up until now, we have seen that if I invest 1 rupees at the start of the term, so I get 1 plus I at the end of the year. So if I invest 1 here, I will get 1 plus I here at time 1, where I is my annual effective interest rate. So the total amount of interest that I have received in this duration is I. When we consider nominal interest rates, the total amount of interest that has been that we get at by the end of the year is also I. But now we consider a different approach of seeing nominal interest rate. Suppose we are given that our P equal to 4, that is, we are dividing a timeline into 4 parts. Suppose we are given I4. We are given the interest rate applicable in this case is I4, and suppose it is 12%. Now, instead of considering interest, accumulating interest, consider that we are getting 3% interest at each time period. So we get 3% here, 3% here, 3% here, and 3% here. The total amount of interest that I will earn by the end of the year is my annual effective interest rate. So I can calculate my annual effective rate. My annual effective rate will be I equal to 1.03 to the power 4 minus 1. So my I will come out to be 0.12551. So by the end of the year, I will earn this much amount of interest. Now, I am assuming that I am earning 3% here, 3% here, 3% here, and 3% here. So 3% is equal to 0.03. We can also look it in a way that if we accumulate each of the amount at the end of the year, suppose if I take this amount here, I take this amount here, I take this amount here, and this amount, this 3% is already here. So what I will do to get this amount at the end of the year, I have total number of 4 payments. So I am assuming that I get 3% or 0.03 at the end of each quarter. This 0.03 is calculated on 1 rupee. You can calculate it on any amount. So what I write 0.03. So I am first taking the first amount, the end, this amount. I am taking this 3% first at the end of the year. To do that, I will have to multiply this 3% by 1.03, 1.03, and 1.03 3 times, because effective interest rate of each quarter is 3%. So I will multiply it with 1.03 to the power 3. Now I will similarly take the another 3% amount which is at the end of second quarter to the end. Similarly, the third amount, and since the third amount is the end of the third quarter, so I will have to only multiply it 1 by 1.03 to get it at the end of the first year. And similarly, I will not multiply anything by the end amount because it is already on the last time period. Now I will take this 0.03 common, so I get 1.03 to the power 3 plus 1.03 to the whole square plus 1.03 and plus 1. If I solve this amount, I will get 0.03. The factors will be so I can write this amount directly. This amount will be 0.12551, which is equals to I, that is the total amount of interest that I would have got if I had used annual effective rate. So we see that the amount of interest I get at the end of each quarter by nominal interest setting is equal to the amount of annual effective rate I when I calculate this amount here. So since I was getting a 12% nominal interest per annum, I divided it equally in P installments. Here P was 4, so I divided that 12% interest equally at the end of each quarter, so I get 3% at the end of each quarter. Then I took this amount, 3%, whatever amount it could be. If suppose I had invested 1 at the beginning, this amount will be 0.03. If I had invested suppose 1000 rupees, then this amount will be 30. So I will take this 3% at the end of the year, this 3% at the end of the year, and this 3% at the end of the year, and this 3% is already at the end of the year. So the amount that I get by accumulating these 4 figures at the end of the year will be equal to I, that is the interest payable effectively once per period. So this is just another representation of nominal interest rate. So we can also think of interest rate as nominal interest as being paid equally in P installments at the end of each Pth interval, which automatically gets accumulated to I. Similarly, in this setting, we can also look discount rates just like this. In discount rates, the first payment will be made here, second will be made here, third will be made here, and fourth will be made here. So when we are given the effective discount rate, suppose this is the effective, this time 0 and this is time 1. So for a 1 rupee loan taken here, I will have to pay, or I will get 1 minus D here. This is the normal setting in discount rate. Similarly, just like we did earlier with interest rate, suppose we are given that D4 equal to 12%. So what we'll do, we'll assume this, that we are paying 12% nominal interest per annum in 4 equal installments. So I will pay 0.03 here, 0.03 here, 0.03 here, and 0.03 here. So what I'm doing now, I will bring those amount instead of the end, I'll bring those amount at the start of the year. To do that, I'll follow the similar way. First, I will take the first amount. This amount is already on time 0, so I will do nothing with it. Then I'll take the second amount, and to bring it back first quarter at time 0, I will have to discount it by one quarter. So the rate which is applicable for one quarter will be 1 minus d4 upon 4. Or I can directly use here 3%. For the second amount, I will multiply it by and similarly lastly I'll multiply it by when I solve this equation, I will get one amount which will be directly equal to D, just like the earlier amount was equal to I. So what this setting wants us to learn is that we can assume nominal interest or nominal discount as just p equal installments of interest that accumulate in case of interest that accumulate to time 1 as I, and in discount rate setting they are discounted to time 0 and are equal to D. This is just to understand and the idea of interest rate and what is going on. This topic will not be tested in your examination, so don't worry about it. Similarly, there is a way to see the force of interest in a similar way. Delta is the total amount of interest payable in a year in a continuous payment stream, that is in a very small duration dt. So delta is the nominal interest rate payable continuously. So if I invest 1 at time 0, so if I invest 1 at time 0, in this duration whole year I am earning an interest by the rate of delta per annum compounded continuously. So just like we did in the case of interest rate, we divided our I4 in 4 equal installment. Similarly, I will divide this total amount of interest I am getting here in infinite small amount. But since 1 divided by infinite is 0, so what I'll take a very small amount of time. I will take a very small amount of time. So the payment that is made at time t is equals to delta into dt. This dt is a very small amount that is tending towards 0, and this is the total annualized amount. So when I multiply these two, I get the total amount of interest paid at a time t. You can also think of it as an example by an example. Suppose in this example delta is 20. So in this whole year, if you do compounding, you will earn 20 rupees in the whole complete year. If suppose I want to know how much I will earn in 1 minute, so 1 minute is a very small time when you consider a whole year. So I can calculate that amount like 20 into 1 upon, I will divide this 20 in the total number of minutes in a year. So there is 24 hours in one day into 60. So this will give us the total minutes in a day and divide it into 365. So you see this number is very small considering the whole time period of 1 year. So this is the concept of dt. Delta dt just gives us a very small amount that is being paid at time t. So in interest case, we took all those amount and took them to the year end, and in discount case, we bring those back on time 0. In this case also, we will suppose this is my time. Suppose something here is my time t. So there is a payment of delta dt here. Suppose there is a payment of delta dt here, and I want to take this payment here at the end of the year. So what I will do, I will take this amount delta dt, I will multiply it with 1.1 plus I to the power 1 minus t. 1 plus I have taken because I is the annual effective rate, and when I put 1 minus t in the power, so what I am doing, I am accumulating this delta t. I am accumulating this delta t here. I am taking this delta t here. This complete duration is 1, and when I separate this t from this, so I get this duration is 1 minus t. And when we use the annual effective rate and we put something in that power, so this accumulation factor will give us this term will give us the accumulation factor of 1 minus t time period, and so this term actually gives me the accumulated value of delta t at time 1. Now since t is any arbitrary amount, arbitrary means I have taken this t to be anywhere. This t could be anywhere between 0 and 1. This t could be here, 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 here. This t could be anywhere in this timeline between 0 and 1. So there are infinite number of possibilities of t. So when there are so many number of cases, we can integrate this. You can think integration as just summation over this range 0 to 1. So what I will do, I will take this amount delta one plus I to the power 1 minus I will take this amount delta t 1 plus I to the power 1 minus t dt it is not t. Delta dt was the amount, this delta is here, and I just adjusted this term in middle so it looks like integration. And since t could be anywhere between 0 and 1, so I will integrate it between 0 and 1. So this amount will be equal to I.